This is John Weirs from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and I'm here today to talk to you about water dams, the Water Data Analysis and Management System for the National Alliance for Water Innovation. Today we're going to be covering data management and submission training on Water Dam's public-facing data repository. Those of you already familiar with water dams know that there's two separate but integrated tools at work here: the Data Foundry, which is a secure collaboration space and sandbox for working teams, and the Water Dam's public-facing data repository. The majority of this training will be focusing on the latter, which is the repository for curated NAWI data intended for public dissemination. This is also where all data from baselining and road mapping efforts will be stored and released. A few key contacts on the Water Dam's team: myself, Katie Broderson, Katie Williams, and Jay Huggins. Most likely you've heard from one or more of them already, and may be hearing from them more frequently in the future. A visual representation of the separation between the two tools illustrates their function and relationship with one another. The Data Foundry, being the secure collaboration space, is where we get to work on our data, combine it with temporary assets, build it up, get it ready for eventual public release or final product. Once it's ready for public consumption, it's submitted to the NAWI Water Dam's public-facing data repository. This is our public data dissemination portal and is where all the data from baselining and road mapping efforts will be disseminated to the greater scientific community. Both of these tools are built on OpenEI, leveraging proven technology that goes back to the 2009 Open Government Initiative and has been developed and enhanced ever since. Let's start with a brief background on the Data Foundry for those of you not familiar with it. It's designed for multi-institutional collaboration and is a secure data storage for large collaborative projects. It's built to handle any number of files and exists in the cloud with limitless data storage. If you need to pass large files with the team or collaborate with different partners, or if you're just working on refining your data sets across a disparate set of team members, this is a great place to use as a sandbox and help you organize your data. Once that data is ready for public consumption, it goes on to Water Dams. Water Dams, of course, is our public data repository. It's a centralized access point for public data sets, and it's also where we're going to publish key NAWI data to support articles, models, and other results. And it's how we disseminate data to the greater scientific community. Water Dams is built on the OpenEI cloud in a secure environment using the infinitely scalable architecture I mentioned previously, so there are also no limits on file size or number of files in Water Dams. It's important to know the reason we're submitting these data to the scientific community. There's an inherent value in the sharing of data. To quote the DOE strategic plan from May 2011, success should be measured not when a project is completed or an experiment concluded, but when scientific and technical information is disseminated. That is to say that any discovery, insight, innovation, or achievement that may come out of NAWI has less value if it's locked up in somebody's desk drawer and only truly reaches its full potential value if it's disseminated to the greater scientific audience, where it can be used to advance the state of the art, lead to future innovations, and future research projects. As you can see from our mission statement, one of the primary goals of NAWI Water Dams is to provide public access to foundational data to enable researchers and decision makers and to identify opportunities for technology innovation. The diagram on the right shows the Water Dam's existing network of data sharing partners, and it's growing by the day. This is important to realize because every data submission to the Water Dams not only shows up in the catalog on Water Dams, but is also broadcast to OpenEI's Central Data Repository, data.gov, the Office of Science and Technical Information's data site network, including Thomson Reuters, science.gov, worldwidescience.org, and dozens of other partner sites. So uploading data to Water Dam's public-facing data repository really is a fantastic way of communicating with the entire scientific community, as the metadata surrounding those data will be broadcast to a network of dozens of other sites. This begs the question, what types of data are okay to submit? After meeting with the individual baselining efforts, we quickly realized that there is a wide variety of data types and formats coming out of the various efforts. So the NAWI data repository We'll be able to support data of all types and formats. We're looking for all data generated by research contracted by the NAWI Alliance and funded by the DOE EERE Advanced Manufacturing Office. And we're looking for the raw data. There's an intrinsic value in raw data. Raw data can aid in the understanding of aggregate findings and summaries. Summary data, by its very nature, is filtered towards a specific goal, while raw data remains free to be used and reused in any number of potential ways. Of course, there is such a thing as data that's too raw, and this is where we start to talk about metadata. We need to be able to supply at least enough information with our data that it's usable and comprehensible by others. And so raw data coming straight off of an instrument or out of a box or from a model run needs to have at least enough context to understand what we're reading. The diagram at the bottom shows two different slices of the same data. The one on the left without context, using relative time in seconds from midnight, perhaps, when the device was turned on, the beginning of the experiment. We don't know. At least we know the units. At least we know it's seconds. Better, of course, would be a precise time. It's easier to contextualize. And also because we have the exact time, date, and time zone, we can correlate this information with other things. And so this correlation, the ability to use this data in different ways, increases the value of the data tremendously. What types of data are not okay? Personally identifiable information. Since all of the data submitted to the NAWI public-facing data repository will eventually be made publicly available, we need to make sure that we're not adding any PII, inappropriate information to these data sets. No business-sensitive data, anything subject to a CRADA, a commercial license. Basically, only data suitable for eventual public release should be submitted to the NAWI public-facing data repository. We're also not trying to duplicate effort or data. So data that's already out there online that has a permanent home on the internet somewhere does not need to be re-uploaded to the NAWI data repository. Instead, you can link to it. The user interface supports adding links to existing resources in an effort to reduce duplication and allow people to correlate their data submissions with supporting materials. So if there are papers out there, other articles, background information, or even other data sets on which your research was built upon, this is a great way to include references to those subcomponents and really create what we like to call a complete data submission package that shows any potential data user the complete picture of where that data came from and how it's best used. Along those lines, one of the things we allow you to do is specify a location for your data. Our location selector lets you draw a box on a map, or you can enter bounding coordinates. You can also select an individual point if that's easier or more appropriate, but we do require locations for everything. Even abstract concepts or universally applicable data are assigned a location. And so if your research is globally applicable, please select world, as you can see here in the lower left, and it will select the entire world for your data. That might seem ridiculous, but it's actually very important for information dissemination. Every search is a geospatial search, and modern search engines know this, and they incorporate this into their search results. And if you're trying to implement a NAWI technology in Denver, Colorado, and you've attributed that technology is globally applicable, these search engines are smart enough to realize that Denver, Colorado is part of the US and the US is part of the world. And so that search result will bubble up to the top, whereas something that doesn't have specific location information is an unknown and won't get as highly ranked. So we're just trying to make this data useful, trying to get from data to information. Information is essentially data with context, and we've been talking about this with location and linking and creating a complete data submission package. But really what we're talking about here is metadata. Metadata is data about data. And the attribution of metadata is important to provide context, to sufficiently communicate effectively our data to the data users, to anyone searching for our data out there that finds it. We want to make sure that they have the information they need to use it properly, to understand it, and to find it. Another important data strategy is data provenance. As you're going about your research project, it's important to keep in mind that the data you're generating today probably won't be the only data you generate for the entire project. You may have to rerun something. You may come back with new information. And this question says it all. We found a mistake in our 2010 data and we want to fix it. What do we do next? Well, we fix it today, right now in 2020. Does that mean it's 2020 data? What if it's based off 2010 census information? Is it 2010 version 2? Is it 2010 vintage 2020? There's many right answers, but the important thing is that you have a strategy and that you use that strategy consistently so that people can understand your data when they come across it and they can understand any updates to it down the road. So plan for multiple iterations. Recommend storing by vintage and version. Try to use a standard naming convention and just understand that almost no data set is perfect the very first time around. There's going to be anomalies, errors, and revisions, so plan for that. At the end of the day, our goal is to protect DOE's investment in proper data management through openness, transparency, security, and provenance. And that's exactly what WaterDAM's public-facing data repository is designed to do. By making the fruits of our labors available to the public, we can ensure that the investment in research and development activities by the Department of Energy AMO office doesn't go lost and is found and is available and is usable and is there to fuel future research and innovation. Upcoming NAWI WaterDAMS timeline. We're doing our cartographer data input training this Thursday. I'll be doing a live demo of the NAWI WaterDAMS data submission process. Please join me for that. And after that, in August, we'll have a soft launch of WaterDAM's data repository with a few public data sets pre-populated in there that we've identified as great resources for the community. In September, we'll be evaluating opportunities for scraping more public data and potentially generating data from various publicly available sources if we can scrape and aggregate into buckets, but we'll be reaching out to the individual road mapping teams to assess data needs and potential goals for this. In December, WaterDAMS will be integrated with the Data Foundry so that as you're polishing your data up in the Foundry, you'll be able to click a button, a single button, to send that data over to WaterDAMS and publish it on the data repository that faces the public. We're also going to be collecting feedback from the cartographers between now and then and incorporating that into a more formalized final version of the WaterDAMS data repository and then having an official launch at the end of December. WaterDAMS will be populated with data from the baselining and road mapping activities no later than December 31st, 2020. So please, please, please plan ahead because all of your data uploads are due in December. Don't wait until the last day to plan your data submission. We'll be doing another data submission training and assistance in November, and we'll be joining select baselining meetings to help answer data questions along the way. And at any time, you can contact us with questions at waterdamshelp@nrel.gov, or feel free to email me directly, john.weers@nrel.gov. Please join me for a live demo of data submission on Thursday. Thanks for your time.